Hello and welcome, viewer. My name is Michael Cox. I am currently a teacher candidate in the Bachelor of Education program at the University of Ontario's Institute of Technology. This video has been created as part of my learning experience with an online course titled Pedagogy of the Land. The video will cover what I have learned from this online course as well as discuss my new understanding of Indigenous related studies. I hope that you will enjoy watching this video and find what I have to share enlightening. Before I describe my experience with the online course, I feel that it is important to share what prior knowledge I possessed in regards to Indigenous groups and the issues that they faced in Canada. In school, I had been taught, along with my fellow students, about what might now be considered a minimal understanding about Indigenous people. We learned about their contact with Europeans since the late 15th century in a few well-known situations, such as the Red River Rebellion and the Oka Crisis. As I started taking more history in high school and in university, I also learned more about Indigenous groups and the dilemmas that plagued them. This included the residential schools, where many Indigenous children were abused and forced to give up the values and beliefs of their people in order to become more civilized. I was also aware of attempts at reconciliation between Indigenous people and the Canadian government, as well as recognizing that they have yet to become truly successful. So, in short, I had been aware of some of the major issues that Indigenous people were against. When I began this online course, I was provided with a more thorough analysis of issues between Indigenous groups and Canadians, as well as how the Indigenous perspective has been downplayed and even ignored. This was especially notable for me as I am becoming a history teacher, and I have learned that it is important to consider all narratives and perspectives when talking about the history of different groups and cultures. At the same time, we also talked about the issues of reconciliation between Indigenous groups and Canadians, especially with what had happened as a result of the residential schools. Being reminded of these problems is a good way to strengthen my understanding of the issues that plague Indigenous-based groups. In fact, there was one quote that I found that talks about the need to acknowledge these issues, which is, "To say these words is to offer a doorway to that understanding to those who hear you." At the same time, however, I learned about new concepts such as the story of the Wintu hunter. In this story, it is revealed that the hunter's success is not just based on his skills alone. Instead, nature allowed him to become successful in his hunt. This adds a new layer to nature being more than just a spiritual connection to Indigenous people. From this story, I have learned that nature has a more omnipotent presence on Earth, as it decides the fate of all life. Having shared my learning experience with this course, there comes two important questions to consider. What is land? And what is pedagogy of the land? You could just easily answer them by saying that land is the very soil that you are standing or living on, while saying that a pedagogy on it means to simply study it. However, there is more to these questions than one may realize, as you have to implement more thorough perspectives in them. Canada, it's incorporating the perspectives of Indigenous groups as they are an important culture to its history. Their perspective, along with their stories, myths, and spiritual insight on nature, are important to understand, as well as acknowledging the problems that need to be mended between Indigenous people and Canadians. With this revelation, I have to say that the meaning of land is how the very soil that you are standing on has a history and story to it. In regards to pedagogy of the land, I see the term as a way of expanding on the history of the land through investigating the history and stories of the cultures that live on it, instead of just looking at facts and giving simple answers. As a future teacher, I have to consider the importance of Indigenous-based studies into the course curriculum. By learning from this course, I can explore and share my understanding of Indigenous culture, studies, and beliefs with students. That way, they will learn a thorough history of Indigenous people and understand what is required to help reach reconciliation between them and the people of Canada. Thank you for the time you gave to listen to my understanding of the pedagogy of the land, and hopefully what I've shared will help encourage others to learn about Canada's past to help shape its future.